Hey, it's Travis. Too many camp directors run just on gut feel. Our free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic is your dashboard for resilience. Take it today at camp.mba/Travis. Again, that's camp.mba/Travis. How do we allow staff to set their boundaries when those boundaries conflict with their job at camp?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
A big thanks to our sponsors who make the CampHacker podcast possible. You don't lead camp because you love the office, right? UltraCamp has everything you need to manage your program so you can spend more time doing what you love. Manage staff, register campers, take payments, and direct communication all in one place. Find out more at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker.
Hello, Camp Mavericks. Welcome to the CampHacker podcast. My name is Travis Allison. This show is brought to you by UltraCamp and 5 Minute Fridays. I am a summer camp marketing and strategy consultant, and I am excited to spend this week talking with you and my favorite co-hosts about this topic.
Hi, everyone. I'm one of the favorite co-hosts. My name is Chris Hudson. I am the founder and director of Camp Highlight, and I am a camp consultant. Camp Highlight is a 1-week sleepaway camp for kids who have LGBTQ plus parents. It is the best camp in at least 3 countries and counting.
My name is Gabrielle Rail. I'm one of the camp directors of Camp Oro. Camp Oro is an all-girls camp in the Laurentian Mountains, and we focus on creating a positive environment for gender minorities.
And my name is Joe Richards. I'm the executive director at Pierce Williams Summer Camp and Retreat Facility, which is located about halfway between Detroit and Toronto. And we are just an amazing camp. That's all. Just an amazing camp. In this country, in this county, yes. One county. That's all I need.
An amazing camp in that county. Yep. Well, welcome to the 3 of you. Grateful to have you back for this show. Before we move on to the topic, I want to just remind folks that reviews do help us. It helps us set the topics. It helps us know what conversations were good and what ones you wanted us to do differently. But we would love it if you went to ratethispodcast.com/camp, click the ratings and reviews button, and then those ratings and reviews can go out to all of the services that people use to decide about their camp podcast listening. Today, I think we're talking about handling the hard part of camp. Partly for ourselves, a lot thinking about our seasonal staff, but not necessarily seasonal staff. There are definite parts of this job that we require people to be uncomfortable to do it. I think as an industry, we're much better at making that, but be more creative about how people can be involved instead of being uncomfortable. But I'll open this up by saying there's a phrase that I got from Dr. Deb Gilboa, many of you know her as Dr. G, that sticks with me a lot. How do we get people to distinguish between what's uncomfortable and what's unsafe? And as part of camp, as part of having a job, as part of new experiences, certainly as part of caring for other people's kids, there are times where you are going to be uncomfortable, where you need to put the needs of somebody else for a short period of time above your own. And there are also times that things could be unsafe, which we're not advocating for. We don't want you to do unsafe things. But so I think it's an important distinction between unsafe and uncomfortable. And it is potentially, honestly, this discussion is coming out of last episode. Joe's Tool of the Week was a great book. I've been thinking about it ever since Joe mentioned it, that thinking about this topic ever since then. And the thing that stuck with me is sessions that staff are required to have as part of their job or part of our insurance. They have to check off that that has to be a part of good health and good human resources management, but are uncomfortable for them, and people choosing to leave instead of coming up with a way to absorb the material that was more comfortable. So it's pretty broad, but it is something I think all camp directors have faced, where staff have said, no, I have to leave. I have to check out of this, etc. but haven't offered the alternative, because I'm a big advocate for this. When we were discussing this topic, I was talking about a staff member of ours who was a genius. He was awesome. He was great with kids. We loved him. And we knew his background. There was no way that we would ask him to go through a session on child abuse because of his lived experiences. And so I wouldn't force a staff member to go to a session that was unsafe for them in that way.
But Travis, you haven't defined what safe is. You're using that unsafe as unsafe mentally, not safe as in physical safety, right? And I think that's where this whole conversation can start, is about what safety are we protecting? Are we protecting the safety of their physical being, which I agree with all campers and whatnot, and by protecting someone's safety for mental and feelings, are we really protecting them? Are we setting them up to not be successful once they get outside of our small little perfect world?
That's a good question.
But
it looks
Joe,
like Chris Hudson's got a thought on it.
But Joe,
Chris
like
has a hand on his face.
I know. I'm
forehead.
just
Go to YouTube, everybody. Check out Chris's face right now.
My head in my hands. But Joe, like, I don't see the utility in separating out different kinds of safety. Like, if we're keeping our children and our staff safe, then we're keeping them safe. And I think in the common parlance nowadays, like, we understand that physical and mental safety, join forces to like constitute our idea of what it means to be safe at camp. And so I think I want to have this conversation, but I don't want to combine things that aren't combined. It's one thing to ask, how do we challenge staff to grow, to gain skills, to fail and try again, while making sure that we are not triggering any trauma, when we are not asking them to go far beyond their abilities, while we take their abilities into consideration. I think I just don't, also, I want to be really clear about this. I do not want this to be a generation bashing conversation. I think this is a good question to ask for camp staff today, but also of yesteryear. Like, let's talk about what has worked. We've all been through a situation where we have worked at a camp and have our boundaries pushed. I just don't want to rest in the idea that we are materially different from young people today. We've dealt with different things, but they are not some weird alien creature with brains that we understand. Development is still development. Is that clear? Like, I want to set the tone for this conversation, because I don't want it to be like, young people suck, because listen, not for nothing, camp directors are saying that all over the country because we're frustrated by this topic. Yeah.
But
not for just this generation.
There is a value in talking about generations, because this generation does have language and has been taught language and has also absorbed the language through like social media. And we're in an opportunity to teach them what the difference is between being triggered or uncomfortable. And emotional safety is just as valid, of course, when it comes to physical safety, but that is also generational. My parents certainly are understanding that more, but it was definitely not their experience growing up whatsoever. And because, I'm in the camp industry, we do try to look at safety. Now, first and foremost, we can't create a safe environment. It's not possible. It's a safer environment. That's how we want to do this. Second of all, our staff are there to take care of campers, of children. And to Joe's point, they do need to be trained and they do need to hear the difficult things so they know what to do. But sometimes when we're talking about emotional safety for staff, I think with camp directors, there's a frustration of, you can't just opt out because you're uncomfortable. You do need to be trained. And how do we bridge that gap? And I think that sometimes there's, the simplest of ways is actually asking your staff, when it comes to our campers, how do we help them, decipher between uncomfortable and unsafe? I remember campers saying to me, I don't feel emotionally safe to sweep the cabin. And so my staff member was like, how do I deal with that? And I was like, we take it very seriously and we have a long conversation, and then they're going to get really, really bored. And they're like, fine, I'm going to do the cabin, but is talking to our staff members first and foremost about, what does that mean? How do we recognize it? How do we support our campers? And you could do activities and exercises and have discussion groups about it. And then we can apply it to ourselves when it comes to the job that we are doing. This is the gamut of things that we need to do. Why is it important for us to participate? If you're triggered, you can't really listen. But what is your responsibility if you do step out? You do have to come back. We do have to sit down during mealtime. These setting those expectations. I get triggered from things. There's certain things I can't stomach. I can't watch. But I've learned the difference between what is triggering and what's uncomfortable. And I think with our staff, they haven't learned either. And as somebody that is a connoisseur of TikTok, the word trigger comes up extremely often.
And can I just break in? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to, just a Wikipedia moment. The word triggered, as used in like the common vernacular now, this comes from exposure therapy. So exposure therapy is like, oh, I'm afraid of snakes. So what the therapist will do is trigger you slowly and carefully by introducing snakes to you. So you are successfully triggered enough so you can work through your anxiety. Triggering is a good thing. It's a way towards health. It's very interesting to me how in the last 15 years, this has been transformed to something that must be avoided at all costs. So it's interesting the way that, language is important. And so to Joe's point earlier, I think or Joe didn't make this point, but I fear that he's going to. I think we need to be, challenging and triggering the staff because we want to push their boundaries. But I think this topic is how do we get them to buy into this process is the question that I think that we're going to end up into.
Yeah. Joe?
So to Chris's thing, so to make sure we're on the same, so the book that triggered this conversation to happen was the Coddling of the American Mind, How Good Intentions and Bad Ideas Are Setting Up a Generation for Failure. And this came to my attention through our previous co-host, Dan Weir, mentioning that he was thinking about it as he was preparing staff training and working with kids. And so that is where I came to the book through. And I think about last summer and after, so we didn't run camp for 2 summers, and I didn't play a huge role in staff training because there's just so much other stuff going on with camp starting again and other issues. And so some of the leadership team thought that you had to put these safety valves in place to allow staff to have this safe environment where their feelings can't get hurt. Hurt feelings doesn't imply unsafe, just so we're all on the same page. Triggers aren't always a bad thing, right? The book speaks about the 3 great untruths that we're sort of passing on to a generation. And one of those is this idea that which does not make us stronger, or that which does not kill us makes us weaker, right? So I grew up with that which does not kill us makes us stronger. So when I go through adversity, if I'm stressed or anxious about that adversity or learn something or fail at it, I look for the lesson in it so I can go out the other side stronger. And some of the wording and the reuse of the wording triggering is, in the way that it's been used now, is this fear from my side, and I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a social worker, the fear from my side that people, when we say safe space for emotions, we're trying to never hurt their feelings. We're trying to never have them have a diversity that they need to think through. And as an employer, so set aside in a camp world, as an employer, there's just some things you're going to have to do as an employee, right? You're mandated by the government in Ontario that if somebody reports child abuse to you or confides in you, you need to deal with it in a certain way. And if a staff session on child abuse is going to cause you to be uncomfortable or relive something, then we need to work through that, because we don't want you to work through that when a kid comes confides in you by yourself late at night at camp out when your other staff are asleep and the kids are asleep and then you get triggered, like I don't know the positive outcome in that situation. And so I think that staff training is certainly different than every day during the summer.
But for me, that just comes down to expectations. And again, that it's setting the expectation that no environment is a safe environment. Our goal is to get to a safer environment. And what is our goal at camp? And I think sometimes we don't always express what does the comfort zone mean? What does growth zone mean? What does that feel like in your body? When do you know you're panicked? Is that, I like using the word panicked because I think that just keeps it central. And it doesn't mean you had to have a negative experience in the past. Just you're panicked, you're overwhelmed. I was really excited to climb the climbing wall. Now I'm on the climbing wall. I'm 2 feet up, but I'm freaking out. Like, these are things that we can have conversations about. And then we can talk about it in the context of professionalism. What does it take for us to do things here? Does everybody feel great being on stage on the first day, talking about sequencing with our campers? We don't immediately do, the human knot on the first 20 minutes because that's very close contact. We build up to that. We're going to do the same for sessions. With some of our sessions at camp, we highlight them as red sessions, yellow sessions, green sessions, and blue sessions. Red sessions are what is necessary by law for all of us to do. Orange sessions is specific to people's jobs. Green sessions is et cetera, blue sessions, et cetera. They're all valuable, but it is important that they understand. I think sometimes staff look at camp directors and even parents look at camp directors and don't see that this is a plan that we've put in place. We also follow rules and regulations, thankfully, because we're taking care of people. And this is sanctioned as government saying, you need to do this, just like we have to do our water tests, et cetera, et cetera. We have to inform our staff members. And then what is the exception when you can't do something? What are the options? How do we deal with that? And translate it for this is how we do it for campers as well. Not everybody's going to fit in this box. How do we manage those campers? I understand young camp directors trying to create a safer space and saying, like, if you're triggered, you may leave and da. For me, that's something that's an uneducated young camp professional that's trying to be very caring and kind without necessarily training. And I do think that mental wellness training is important. I do think trauma-informed care training can be helpful. But I think also how we support our young camp direct professionals and how we talk to them about how we're creating these spaces is necessary too, because it can backfire. And I had that happen this summer. Somebody disclosed something in front of my whole staff that was quite uncomfortable, and I had to stop the session. But I had a lot of staff afterwards be upset and say, you didn't create a trigger warning. I didn't know that the person was going to disclose something. And I had to talk to them about that. That's I understand it. I also had to leave. It was a little overwhelming. But there's it's almost like, how do we have those conversations? How do I bring it up? How do I take responsibility?
But isn't that like the easiest thing in that sense, Gab, to say, I didn't create a trigger warning because the world doesn't give us trigger warnings. I didn't know it was going to happen. And this is going to happen numerous times in your life.
And this is the education. I agree with Joe here. That is the education, right?
Yes, I agree too.
On this one thing, Chris agrees.
On this one thing, I agree with Joe.
You two agree all often. Okay.
we agree, or just our tone is different.
It's true. Very true.
I want to say, and we were talking before we started recording, me and Joe agree more often. We agree secretly more often than people would think. I am a stickler. And when it comes to this, listen, I mean, obviously, I've been doing this for a long time, right? And also, I'm a social worker. I've had to sit through trainings where we look at pictures of the aftermath of physical abuse. I've had to sit across from people who have molested their kids, have killed their partners. I've sat across from kids who have had these, really terrible things. Now, the question is, does that mean that all social workers are drawn from people who have never had anything bad happen to them? No. Of course not. But the idea is that if we want to do this job, we have to sit through this training. Now, I mean, and I don't want to harp too much on this because I don't want too much information about this, Travis, but like if you have a staff member who has suffered through sexual abuse, right? Like, what is it? One in 4 girls before the age of 18 and 1 in 9 boys before the age of 18. That's a lot of people. To accept them from receiving information about how to serve others in similar situations, I think is just really a step too far. But that's just me, especially if you are coming into a job where you are tasked with maintaining safety for young people. You are going to have to push a little bit. And if you discover in the pushing that your boundaries are being violated to the point where you can't handle it, then sweetie, this isn't the job for you. And I know that this is very controversial because we're in a moment where we tell everyone that they can do everything, but everyone can't do everything. And I think that is something to discuss with camp staff during the marketing of the job and the hiring of it. Like, listen, let me not generalize. I had this experience when I was a freshman in college where you show up someplace, you meet people you swear are destined to be your best friends, and you like trauma dump on them. You think about like your freshman year, the things you shared with people you just met, right? Because that's developmentally where you are, is exploring and trying to set up boundaries. Now we invite these people to come work at our camps. What do we think is going to happen? Of course, in the middle of the training, they're going to reveal that they have been raped or that they have been abused or that they, whatever. And Joe's right. Like, life doesn't come with trigger warnings, right? You all here are learning, like staff, you all are learning about boundaries and how to set them up. And I think we can be a place that be like, listen, this isn't a therapy thing for you, but, understanding their developmental level and understanding where they're at and meeting them where they're at. Like, let's have some work about boundaries. Like, you all met each other. Have you decided what you're going to share with each other? I mean, that sounds really interpersonal. Like, maybe as administrators, we shouldn't get involved, but this is an education for them that will help them in their job. And what should you not share with each other? Okay. What are we not sharing with campers? I don't know. This is like a whole thing that I think I did a 5-Minute Friday on, but so everyone go back and check that out. But I think in summary, I think one, don't have feelings at work. That's just me. I don't have feelings at work. I have goals and I have boundaries, but I don't have feelings at work. You can't hurt my feelings at work. I'm working. That's me. But I just feel like we should move into a space where we stop talking about our feelings getting hurt and more about like, oh, this is beyond my boundary. I can't handle it right now. This isn't for me. Rather than I need everything to stop and cater to me. Like, you're at work. We can't do that.
But okay. So feelings energy. That's all. I'm angry. That's an energy. I'm sad. That's an energy. And I think that I'm overwhelmed is also an energy, and it has to go somewhere. And so feelings at work I wish I could be like, they don't exist. I think they maybe did a long time ago. But there's an opportunity to teach staff members how to manage their feelings. Of course, you're not responsible for teaching everybody to human, but we are able, I think, to set up expectations during our interview sessions. I don't know when in CampHacker, but we talked about a long time ago, questions that you ask first year applicants. And I think I remember Joe saying, I asked, what book are you reading right now? And it's really, really telling. And I think you might have adjusted it to also podcast after I was like, I don't read the books, but I do have the podcast. Yeah.
Podcast music.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very telling. And I think that in interviews, there's a place for asking certain questions when you're seeing that there's themes that are coming up. And it's not about, your feelings necessarily, but it's about saying we deal with tough stuff and we talk about tough stuff. Where do you stand on that? And starting it there, we're going to go through trends, constantly. Interviews is a place where we can sort of adjust and set our expectations. But we have an opportunity to teach staff, like, what do you do with this? And listen, if you feel unqualified, like I do, when it comes to talking about these things, because I feel like I'm still learning, bring in an expert, reach out, find somebody like Chris that could maybe come to your camp and help you have those conversations. And sometimes, even if you have the knowledge and you can express, everything as well as Chris can, having somebody else come and say it is more powerful, because again, it's not just coming from you, just like the session on abuse. It's not something that we're trying to harm our staff with. We need to inform people. But when I say this is a red session, that's because it's been sanctioned by the Quebec Camp Association and the Ontario Camp Association, and the information is checked here. Sometimes I think it just comes from my brain that I'm randomly putting together. And I do think bringing somebody in and talking about these differences, like the whole thing about triggered, I didn't know that background in the language of what that is. I find that very fascinating. And I think this is helpful to bring in staff training.
I now want to spend some time and talk to you about UltraCamp. UltraCamp is a long-term sponsor of CampHacker, and we're super grateful to them for all that they have done for us and what they do for the camp industry as well. So there are some specific thoughtful things that UltraCamp does in their software and just other stuff as well. We know that some people have struggled this year with staffing, and we also know, this is definitely a lesson that gets reiterated on the Camp Code podcast over and over again, that we can and should be communicating with our people before we need them to apply for camp, etc. And UltraCamp creates a staff communication calendar that includes the prompts, things for you to write, ways to keep in touch. And you can download that for free at ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker. UltraCamp knows that you didn't get into this job because of your passion for paperwork, because of all of the paperwork that you wanted to do, that you had real reasons for making a difference in staff and kids' lives. And UltraCamp wants to free you up to do that. They want to build a platform. They built a platform that streamlines the management stuff so you can get on to making a difference in people's lives. With UltraCamp, you have no more need to learn and remember lots of different platforms to run the whole camp. With UltraCamp, you can register and manage campers, generate and direct the communication, organize schedules and activities, process payments and donations. UltraCamp's goal is really to keep camp pros like you having less time that you're required to be in the office and more time out there making a difference. If you want to know if UltraCamp is the right fit for you, you can get a free customized demo session and the free staffing communication download at ultracampmanagement.com/CampHacker.
Can I just clarify about what I said about feelings? First of all, I take nothing back, but I just want to clarify. Yes, feelings, energy is there. I think
Did your feelings get hurt, Chris?
I was afraid I hurt other people's feelings. No, but what I want to say about feelings is that, like, yes, energy's there. Like, and sometimes I get frustrated at camp. Sometimes I get really sad. Sometimes I get really angry at staff or campers. What I mean by there's no feelings at work is that I then do not take those feelings and make them part of the group process. These are my feelings to process, right? If a coworker makes me angry, instead of like going behind backs and talking and making a really big drama about it, I need to have the skill to address my own feelings, figure out how to process them, and then work through them. That's what I mean. Like, and the onus is on me to work through them because I am at work, because I cannot fall down, because I cannot take off 6 hours to deal with my frustration that arts and crafts didn't go the way that I wanted. That's what I mean, that there are no feelings at work. Listen, love my staff. I love them. I care for them. What I can't do is therapize them or treat them because I'm busy taking care of other people's children. And so should you. And so setting up a way to do that. That's what I'm
talking about self-regulation. Yes. And that's the thing we're trying to teach campers. And I think that's one of the best ways to talk to staff members, honestly, when it comes to these type of things, is to talk to them, because what we're dealing with them is what they're going to be dealing with kids anyways. So we talk about self-regulations. How do we want to do that? How do we want campers to regulate? How can we support them? And then you bring in, every once in a while, as a staff member, I might blah, blah, blah. What are your things? What do you do? What is acceptable at camp? What happens if a 1 minute break isn't enough? What happens if this becomes a chronic thing? Setting up those expectations. But self-regulation is also something that is practiced and is, you tolerate stuff, and you learn how to tolerate, and then you learn how to express those energies in a way that's constructive, that you're not pushing on other people. I will say also, I've seen the other side of campers and staff members really powerful with their emotions that I'm learning from. And I remember a 16-year-old when I walked into their CIT cabin, they were having a moment, and one CIT just started sharing a lot of personal things. And another CIT just said, hey, I don't know if you've checked in with everybody to see if it's okay to share this stuff. So maybe we just do that. And I was like, I'm still learning how to do that in the moment. And it was really kind and it was really lovely. I've also seen staff members that are 20, 21 years old be able to hold space for others the way I'm still learning how to do. And that's because they're being raised by parents that are quite emotionally aware. And that's why they work at our camp, because they get to practice those muscles. They truly are muscles, but they don't trauma dump, and they don't walk out when they'll say, this is really overwhelming for me. They leave for a bit, they come back, they take responsibility. We can get our staff there, but I think we're all fumbling a little bit on how to do that, basically.
I think my final thoughts on this would be that it's a process. We're dealing with this generation.
Thank you, yes.
And we'll deal with the next generation, and then I'll retire. And then, right, like we deal with what comes up. And what the book is helping me see is that this is something that we need to think about, but it's also a learning opportunity, not only for us and how to train people, but to give people a learning opportunity to have them understand that the world in general is not a safe space. The world is going to challenge you. The world is going to push you. And I'm not saying that that's our job to do, but I do agree with the fact that this job is not for everybody. And I do agree with the fact that the sooner, just because you loved camp as a camper does not mean you're going to love camp as a staff member, or that camp is going to love you as a staff member.
That you can successfully make that transition to seeing camp from the other side, where, your camp experience has been, you were put first.
Yeah.
And that you have to be.
And the reality, and I say to my staff all the time, Travis, is that, no matter how good of a friend you think I am to you as a staff member here at camp, camp comes first and campers come first. And so when I make decisions, know that it's not, I don't like you. Know that it's about camp and this place, and making sure that we give the campers all that they need to be here.
Excellent spot for us to wrap that up.
Well said.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. It is time now for our foam head of the week. I mean, it's time for our tool of the week.
Tool of the week.
You really want to be watching this episode on YouTube. You really do. Zoom's not showing you what we see because Zoom always highlights the speaker. So Joe, I'm going to give the floor to you for your tool of the week first, so people can see your glory.
Awesome. My tool of the week is a card game. And the card game is, just wait a second, is Point Salad. It's very simple. The reason I think this is super good for summer camp directors and camp people is always having something to pull out or to shut your brain off, right? And just do something else. I know that when I was at the Taylor Staton camps, we always used to have a card game every night in our cabin that the section heads could just wander into and pick up. And we used to play Flux because you can literally just pick up 3 cards and start and join the game. But Point Salad is a nice, great game and easy to play and very affordable.
Thank you so much, Joe. Who is your foam head for this week?
This week's foam head is the Indiana
Pacers?
No,
Nope,
Colts.
that's basketball. Colts.
The Colts. And this was actually, I was invited to a game by another camp director and who had seasons tickets. And so I bought the Colt foam head. Boom.
There you go. Thank you, Joe, for your tool and your foam head. All right, Gab, what's your tool?
My tool is a heated belt that you can put around your waist. I've got it right here.
Oh.
I don't know if you can tell, but there's little lights on and change different temperatures. My brother Morgan got this for me for Christmas. And I'm just going to speak to the people that have uteruses that are listening. So, when you have cramps and it's not bad enough for you to just be in bed so you can work, but it's really uncomfortable. I had one of those days and then I was like, oh yeah, this heated thing. I put it on and all of a sudden I was like 100%. And that's really never happened for me. It has a front heating pad, back heating pad. It's really, really soft. And he got it for me because I get cold really easily. So why I'm bringing it up is for two reasons. One, if you have people that have uteruses at camp, maybe you'd like to invest in one or two, because there's one thing about being attached to a heating pad or a magic sack. You can't keep that on you all the time. So it really just makes a difference. Or if this is just a little over your budget, it's about $100. There are heating pads that you can get at the pharmacy that are just like not reusable, like one time use, yeah. But they do stay for like an hour, and people that have back problems
sometimes more.
Yeah. Actually quite a long time. So just something that I think is nice to have in your health center for people that might need to use it.
Yes, or you for your own comfort.
Yep.
Chris, what's your tool?
Vibing off of something Joe said about just like turning brains off. Like I'm on vacation right now, and I just want to share this experience I've had with listeners. Is that the other day I did not think about work for an entire day, like from when I woke up to the following morning. And I can tell you that has not happened I can't tell you. Actually, I can't tell you. I don't know when that's happened. And a couple of weeks ago, I recommended the book You Are Here by Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Buddhist monk. It really was helpful. And I think reading that book has brought me to this place, which I'm really enjoying. So I'm going to sort of double down on that recommendation. And one, check out that book. Two, I want to recommend a website. It's mindful.org/how-to-meditate. Listen, meditation isn't for everybody. When I tried, I would often just fall asleep. But meditation is more than just sitting and saying like Om and trying to like see the universe with your third eye. It's just really placing yourself in your body and paying attention to the things that we don't pay attention to because we are so distracted by everything else. Listen, I run a summer camp and I have a consulting business, and I also have friends, family, and errands to do. And it gets the most of me. Most of the time. So if you're anything like me, as a busy professional, and if turning your brain completely off for a day sounds great, then find a way to do that. And if it's not meditation, I don't care what it is. If it's meditation, if it's like literally sleeping all day, anything that's healthy for your body, I suggest that you do it. But check out that website first. Give it a read. It answers all your questions about meditation, and just try it. You can try it for 5 minutes. And if you fall asleep, great, right? You did it. You achieved relaxation. That's the point.
Thank you very much. My resource is, I suppose, a more professional resource than a personal one. It is the website loveandlogic.com, and is spelled out. And the founder is Dr. Charles Fay, and they have some great resources for parents and teachers. And I must acknowledge that I got this resource from Sue Levy, who is a former camp owner, former camp director, and she's talked about all the great stuff that she's discovered from the Love and Logic group. And they have great practical resources, trainings. Their motto is, "We help you raise strong, happy, responsible kids." And so there's lots of really great stuff there for camps, for your own training. You can get trained as a Love and Logic trainer, which may be something that would be helpful for people for their own staff training, since that's been a topic today. There are just some great resources, highly recommended, and I want you to check that out. Dr. G and I are going to be interviewing Dr. Charles Fay on our Apparently podcast, and that's all because of Sue. So if you are also a camp director who has great tools and you want to share them with us, please email me, travis@gocamp.pro. We'll be happy to talk them out, to share them out with the crew. And there is back of my head, a deep wish that we have not just our own Tool of the Week episode, but we have a pre-summer, every Camp Pro, 50 Camp Pros share one tool they're going to make use of this summer. So maybe we'll get to that, just in case. We don't send stuff to travis@gocamp.pro. Thanks, Gab, for being on the show today.
Thanks, everybody. I loved it.
Right on. Joe, thank you for this topic. It was great. I'm really glad we got to spend some time on it.
Me too. Thanks, Travis.
See you, Chris. Have fun in the rest of your time in a warm place.
Believe me, I will.
I believe you. I believe you. I mentioned Camp Code. I've mentioned all of our other podcasts today. I did mention Camp Code, which you should be mainlining at this point in the year, getting ready for staff training. It's a great show. I do want to bring a special attention to first class counselors, where Matt and Oliver are talking to your counselors. They are spreading the lessons that we have talked about here practically to your counselors. They can subscribe for free if you refer to them. I know camps that require people to subscribe to it and listen to specific episodes as part of the pre-camp get to camp, better able to handle camp. So they've done some great episodes this year, and we're really excited that they do that, grateful that they give that to the camp industry. And I'm thankful to the three of you. I am thankful to everybody who listens and watches this show. And I want to say in conclusion, thanks for the evening, friends.
The CampHacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Camp Pros. We love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, if you've gotten even one good idea from a Go Camp Pro podcast, a masterclass, from the Summer Camp Pros group on Facebook, at a conference, or wherever else, we ask that you give credit where credit is due. That way, we can encourage camp pros to keep freely sharing their brilliant ideas and make the camp industry better. Thanks very much.
Hey, it's Travis. Camp directors often tell me they're just too tired to take on anything new. That's exactly why my free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic exists. It doesn't add work, it shows you progress. Quick, free, repeatable, you'll know if your systems are paying off without the guesswork. Try it today at camp.mba/Travis. That's camp.mba/Travis.